Всем привет! Добро пожаловать на Nuridi Talks. Сегодня будет первый выпуск здесь со мной в Америке с моим учителем истории. Hi everybody, welcome to our Nuridi Talks channel. Today we will talk with my history teacher, Mr.Cain. So first, thank you for sharing your time.
Sure.
But this is for you.
Oh.
Do you remember that chocolate?
Love
that
it.
I
Yes.
gave
Thank you. It's delicious.
you? Did you try it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's great. Actually, this is one, the nuts and raisins is different from the other one you gave me.
Yeah, that was
Exciting.
like classic one. This is with nuts and raisins.
I'm excited.
So, how long you've been working as a teacher?
This is my 21st year.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I've been here longer than people think. So I started here in 2003. And so, yeah, and I've been at Harrison every year except one. During COVID, I was at home working in the virtual academy. But yeah, every other year I've been here at Harrison. So.
Oh, so you've been working here for like 23 years only in Harrison? Like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, that's
Yes.
a lot.
It's a long time.
Okay, did you had like any maybe teachers in the past that made impact on you to become a teacher?
Absolutely. That's one of the main reasons I decided to become a teacher, was because I had two or three, a couple of history teachers, and one was my German teacher actually, and they were just excellent and just made it fun and made it interesting. And I always liked history anyway, and so when I got to college, first year I really didn't know for sure, but then I sort of, made that decision that this is what I want to do. So yeah, I think that so I was definitely inspired by teachers.
You were learning like teaching degree in college?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I actually did a double major, so I majored in secondary education is what they call it here, and then I also got a major in history itself.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I was talking with Miss Kaiser, and she was saying that her English teacher also made an impact on her to become like an English teacher. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
That's usually how it works. Yeah, I think most teachers would have one or two teachers that they had that they would point to and say, they made me want to be a teacher. Yeah.
What, like, conditions maybe Harrison gives for a teacher? Like new maybe opportunities. I know that like my host dad, he's a counselor, and they're like going to any like conferences anytime. So like, do you have something interesting here, or maybe is it like strict rules for teachers, or I don't know?
I wouldn't say strict. I mean, I think you mean as far as we're bound by. Like, I'm bound by the curriculum. Like, I have certain things that I have to teach, certain topics that I have to teach. But as far as how I teach it and what exactly we cover is up to me. And they've never really dictated to me, here's how you have to teach civil rights or whatever it is we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's generally up to the teachers to decide. And we all talk, like all of our teachers in our department talk to each other. So we all are kind of doing the same thing at the same time, but we all have our own style, we all have our own flair. So they do give us some leeway there. It's not as strict as like, you have to do this. I don't know if that's what you meant by that, but.
You have to talk about like methods of teaching. Do you have your own one, or you're just like talking with other teachers and you're deciding like taking ideas of each other?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, they call them PLCs, that's what we call them here, where it's basically, so like all of the U.S. history teachers will all get together and be like, okay, we're teaching World War II, how do you do that? Do you have certain things, like lessons or activities or videos or whatever it is that, and yeah, we definitely share all that stuff with each other. So it's kind of like, what worked for you, what's best for you, what didn't work, and then you can kind of figure. So year to year, you can kind of change it up and say, okay, I know this worked last year and this didn't. So that's really a big part of teaching, is sharing ideas, because you're always looking for something new, always something different, so you can keep the kids involved, engaged.
Do you think that you will continue working for a long time?
Probably probably not another 20 something years, but technically I could retire in 9 more years, I think, when I turn 55. So that would be the shortest amount of time, would be 9 more years, but more than likely it would be closer to like 14 or 15 years, maybe.
Oh my God.
So it'll be still a while. I mean, and as long as things are the way they are now, I'll continue to stay at Harrison because I like it a lot. Love the people, love the teachers I'm working with. Students are mostly great. Not all of them, but most of them.
So you're planning to continue working as a history teacher?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So my mom, she's working as a Kazakh language teacher, and she's like, there was a time when I was coming to her at school every day, and I was just like listening how she's telling everything again and again and again, and I'm like, how you're not being tired? And it was like for 1 year I was like listening to all of this, and then I'm like, are you gonna continue working as a teacher? You're not tired? She's like, no, I like it. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I think it takes a certain personality. Like you have to be patient, and you have to enjoy what you're teaching. Because like I've been teaching U.S. history every year that I've been here. So the stuff you're hearing me teach, I've taught it for 20 years, right? So that's why you have to change things up a little bit here and there, just for yourself to make it less boring. You know, because like I know all this stuff, but they don't, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of keeps you going is when I see my students learning it and getting it and like getting interested in it. That's what kind of fuels your passion for teaching. It's like you're bringing it to the next, like every group is different. Every year is, so you're teaching the same stuff, but it's different every year because you have different kids, and they're coming with their own personalities. So every class is a little different. So that makes it kind of fun.
Yeah, that's cute. What topic is your favorite?
Oh my God. That's hard to pinpoint because I love history. First World War is always fascinating because it's just so terrible and should have never happened. The Cold War, so the whole Russia versus America thing, which is going on forever. I was born in 1978, so I remember the 1980s, and it was all about Russia's terrible, and and it was like World War III is gonna happen. So I remember that stuff personally. So I find it interesting to go back and study the stuff now, kind of having that memory of some of the stuff that went on. But so more modern history, I guess. Like when you go back to like ancient times, it's kind of like some of it's good, some of it's boring. But I'm more about the modern history.
Okay. So do you teach AP history?
AP World History and US. Next year I'll be teaching AP US History. Yeah. And I've done it before.
On AP you're teaching a time since 1900, or you teach something before?
In AP World, you start from the year 1200, and I don't know why they chose 1200, but it's 1200 to present. Okay.
Oh my God, that's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. But
in 1 year?
But I mean, in 1 year. But in regular world history, they start thousands of years ago. They start in the ancient times, so it's like you're just getting a little sampling. So 1200 to present, you can get some specifics. AP U.S. history goes all the way back to, 1492, basically, with Christopher Columbus discovering, and then you go from there. So, but like in the freshman U.S. class, we just started with the Civil War, 1865. So it's a little different. What you're covering and how you're covering it is different when you get into the AP classes.
Do you like more studying AP classes or like freshman classes?
I don't know. It sort of depends. I mean, AP World History is kind of dry because they're focusing on things like trade routes and things that aren't mostly really exciting, and they downplay stuff like the World Wars, things that are actually fun to talk about. So some of it's the curriculum can be a little. So I've always preferred American history just because I know it better, and like I said, the 20th century stuff is the second semester stuff I find to be really interesting all the way through. So I love it. So if I could just teach one thing, it would just be like second half of American history.
Oh, really?
That's the best, yeah.
That's what we're
That's what
learning
we're
right
in now.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've never heard about the February Black Month. I don't know how you call it.
Black History Month, yeah.
Yeah, like Civil War, civil rights, and I'm like, the thing that we're learning right now, this is like so much new for me, and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like I knew about this problem here, but I didn't know that it's so deep.
Yeah, I mean, and for someone who's, because most of these folks have heard about civil rights over and over and over again for years and years, and it's like, here you are, and I mean, has it surprised you to learn some
Yes,
stuff?
it is surprised because, like, I knew that it was segregation, but I didn't know that it was like that big problem. That like so much things happened. I'm like, oh my god, that was like the real history. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
well, I'm glad you got to learn
Yeah.
this stuff, because it is interesting, and it showed, it's so different now than what it wasn't that long ago that stuff was going on. So it's like, my parents remember this stuff, so it's kind of funny to talk to them about it.
Yeah, because it wasn't that long ago. It was just like, we can say recently, and right now so much things changed. And when I was sitting in a cafeteria, it was like 2 months ago, I think. I was on my AirPods, and one girl, she said N-word, I guess, and another guy started to bully her. She started to cry. That was crazy. Like, so much drama happened. It was just like right in front of me, and I was like, oh my gosh. Like, what happened? They said, because she said the N-word, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And when I came here, it is so scary to like say something wrong, because I don't know what to expect here.
Right, yeah. Well, and that happens a lot. You get a mixture of people. Most folks get along fine, but I've heard stories of, before my time here, like back in the 1960s and 70s, because this school didn't open until like the early 60s, I think. So apparently there were a lot of problems with white and black students back in those days, because they weren't used to going to school together, and then when you just throw everybody together, there's going to be conflict. So it's a lot better now, but you still have those. It's always, unfortunately, always going to be with us, I think, it's on some level.
We still have people who say N-word in Kazakhstan, but it's just people from like post-Soviet Union time, like our parents, grandparents. So and for example, when we sing in a song and there is N-word, we actually never like think about this. We just like say it. And when I came here, I'm like, wait, this is like so different here, so that I cannot say that, and I shouldn't say that at all, like even in Kazakhstan. So that was like so.
That's crazy. I didn't even realize that was a word in other countries. So that's interesting that it's used over there. And see, my grandparents used that word all the time, and I grew up hearing it, and it's like they just didn't think about it, because that was just how it was back then.
Yes.
So it's like that's how things, generations change, and hopefully we're getting better and improving. So that's a good thing. Wow, interesting.
We don't have black people, all like maybe some immigrants from United States, or I don't know, from any countries, and when they come, 100% they've heard N-word to their side. Like, a lot of people told them, and I have a teacher who is African American, and I'm always scared if my, for example, dad will come to school to talk, he will say, oh, you're an N-word. I'm like, please don't say that.
Yes.
Because they don't even realize that this is bad, and this is like so different here. Did you have some like crazy situations with students? I mean, I'm in a freshman class, and when I just came here, it is so different than what I have in my school, and they're freshmen, they're like crazy, and I was like, where am I? And I always hear like curse words, and they're like very loud, or they're like talking very loud, and you're being so patient, and I'm like, oh my god, I wish I had so much nerves as Mr. Cain.
And I'm not as patient as I used to be. It's really, I mean, you mentioned the curse words. I feel like that's gotten a lot worse just in the last few years. Like, I've noticed, I feel like with COVID, when COVID happened and everybody stayed home for all that time, for whatever reason, people came back and didn't know how to act in public, and it's like now they just say whatever's on there, and it's like there's no filter anymore. Like they don't think. And I have to, I try to remind people, hey, you're in a classroom, please don't talk like that. But a lot of times it just flies out of their mouth and they don't even think. And I think that's that's definitely something that's different, and it's worse than it used to be. And yeah, I mean, my philosophy is, high school's hard. It's hard to be your age in high school, especially now with with the phones, with social media. Like you're constantly bombarded with stuff, and I can't even imagine the type of abuse that some people get online. I'm not here to make your life harder. I'm here to make your life hopefully easier, and hopefully help add something to it with the stuff you're learning. So to me, I'm not going to sweat the details so much. Like, if you're here, you're ready to learn, and you're willing to work with me, that's great. That's all I ask,
That's so cute.
Yeah.
That's so much different than mostly we have, because like I study in the school which is like has international education, but like other schools, just like the simple schools, they don't have this kind of teachers. Maybe a few, but like mostly if students act really weird, teacher will like scream, or I don't know, they will be crazy. So I'm actually, I don't know, my teacher when I was in the middle school, my teacher, she was very strict, and we all were afraid to do something wrong but we had like the perfect discipline in our class. And I think since that time I am afraid of saying something bad to teacher or be like crazy in the class. And when I came here, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like a new generation. I don't know. This is so much different.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not and I mean, part of it is the parents. Like, I feel like parents now do not command the respect of their kids the way that previous generations did. Mm-hmm. So when they come here, I don't think they have as much respect for us as they used to. But also, they don't have as much respect for each other as peers.
Yeah.
And the stuff they say to each other and how they treat each other is like, really? Can we just get along here? We all got to be here. Just try to, So, unfortunately, I think maybe we've gone a little too far with trying to be lenient and accommodating. And I think maybe we could be a little more strict, and would probably be beneficial on some level. But I don't think being overly strict is the answer, because then it just shuts people down, and I don't want to do that. Like, I want you to be able to come in here and know you're comfortable, you're safe, you're going to learn something when you come in here, and it's going to be hopefully fun and interesting. Maybe not every day, but it's going to be something, So that's my goal.
That's so sweet. This is like the real American class. I don't know. This is more about like freedom, feeling very free here. Yeah, because I think everybody here feel very freely. Mm-hmm. I don't know how to say it, because you don't care about other stuff, you just care about your history class right now, and like I really like it.
Good.
So
yeah, I mean, to me, I say I enjoy what I do, and I like to think I'm good at what I do, and that's what you and everyone needs to, this is the time in your life when you need to start figuring out, what am I good at, what do I like, what am I interested in. To me, that's kind of what high school is like, you're just sort of figuring out, what am I interested in, what am I not, and then go to college and then sharpen those skills, and then get out there and just do something that you're good at, that you like doing. And that's what, so to me, most teachers, that's why you stay a teacher, because you like what you're doing, and hopefully you're good at it, and you feel like you're making, I mean, when I was in school, like, I had it in my head, like, I could go make money doing a lot of things, but I can only, I wanted my life to have a little more purpose than just making a paycheck, right? Yeah. So here, I can make a comfortable living. I could make more doing other stuff, but I feel like with this job, at least, I know at the end of my life, I will have made money, but I will have also made some people's lives better, and hopefully made some difference. And you never feel like, I mean, in the moment, honestly, a lot of days I go home feeling like completely defeated. Like, wow, that day didn't go well, that kind of thing. But in the long run, like, I have so many, like, the majority of my Facebook friends are former students. And they seek me out, and it's like, and I get to see how their lives are playing out. And it's like, I played a little role in that. Like, I played a little small role in their life. And that's kind of, to me, that's what's fun about this job.
That's really good.
They'll always remember Mr.Cain, and something about my class. Yeah. And they'll send me random messages and go, hey, do you still do such and such activity in class because they remember that from 10 years ago, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that they remember that. So
Yeah.
that's what makes teaching kind of different and sort of unique among all the jobs you can do.
Mhm.
There's no other jobs that you get that from, I think. So
Did you study in Harrison before?
no, I live in a town called Mount Vernon. It's about
Oh,
25 miles
yeah.
west of here in Posey County, and I just happened to get a job here. Like when I got out of college, I just applied, and this was the school that hired me. So, and I've just stayed with it. So I drive quite a ways. I drive 50 miles a day round trip.
So you were graduated from Mount Vernon School?
Yeah, and actually, Mr. Cain,
Yeah.
he and I went to school together. Although he's a bit older than me, but yeah, I know him and his brother.
My host mom, she said, "Are you gonna make a video with Mr.Cain? Ask him a question which Kamatsu you like more."
Well, I know Eric better because I actually had classes with him, and so. But they're both great guys, so I'm a big fan of the Demunza family. So.
Okay, so so here Harrison is like very known for much diversity.
Mhm.
So I noticed that there are a lot of people from different countries and all this stuff. And
Yes.
even like when I come in Richmond, like first days when I came in Richmond, some guys, I don't know, French guys, they started to talk to me, and we were talking by Google Translator, and I'm like, bro, that's so confusing.
Mhm.
And I always hear like people speaking Creole, French, and like always when I'm here in Richmond,
Yeah.
I hear people speaking, I don't know, it's or Creole or French, they're like similar a little bit.
Yeah.
So is it difficult for you to communicate, even like with me?
Well, yeah. I mean, it can be. You know, if you know enough English where it's easy,
Yeah.
and I know what you're saying, even if you're not coming up with the exact right word. Like I know, but yeah, with those guys, I mean, it seems like we had a lot of folks from Haiti, and I think that's where the Creole
Yeah.
is coming from, and that is difficult. And there's been years past where I've had students who don't speak a word of English, and I'm supposed to be helping them learn. So I would use Google Translate, and I would literally just whatever stuff I was given, I would just print it out in Spanish or whatever language, and that would seem to help them. But it's like, what else can you do? I mean, like I don't speak their language, so that's a challenge. That's definitely, and the more so in recent years, we've gotten more and more folks from other countries, and we've had a lot of immigrants coming from all over the world because they want to be American, and I get that. And that's what's cool about America is like we take everybody. Right? I mean, we're just
Yeah.
like, come on in, and that's kind of how we've always been. But that does make for a challenging classroom environment for sure. Yeah,
There were also some exchange students like past years. For example, last year there were Fuad from Turkey. Do you know him?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, there were like guys from Turkey, Germany, Japan.
Oh yeah.
Did you work with them?
I mean, I've worked with folks from all over. Sometimes I don't even know, I try to have conversations with them so find out more about where they came from and why and all that, but I don't always get a chance to do that with everybody. So but I know I've had kids from probably dozens of countries in my career.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but like I said, more so within the last few years, I'd say, than before.
Oh, there also was a guy like 2 years ago from Ukraine, Art.
Yeah,
Do you know him?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, because we started to talk on our like social medias, and right now we have exchange students from Spain,
Okay.
and her host parents, they were hosting him 2 years ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I'm like, oh, he's like, are you in Harrison? I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, he's like, what teachers do you have? I'm like, I have Miss Kaiser, Mr.Cain, and then he's like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, yeah.
I have a girl in my first period. She came in recently from Spain, and she speaks very good English. So
Claudia?
yeah.
Yeah, she's exchange student.
Okay.
Yeah, her host parents hosted him.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go. Yeah, so she's great, and like as long as there's some English, we can get along fine. But it is tough when they don't speak at all, and then you're sort of starting
Yeah.
with, okay, here's Google Translate. Let's try to work through it. But that's you can't help who walks through this door. Like that's for me. Like they're gonna load you up with people from all over, not just from different countries, but different levels of, understanding, different grade levels, different reading levels. Some of them may be ready for AP classes, and some of them may be struggling, just to stay in a regular class. So you sort of have to just meet them where they're at and just figure out what's the best way to help each person do their best.
Yeah.
Sometimes that takes time, to figure those things out, and maybe sometimes sit down with them individually and be like, what do you need from me? What do you need from me to help you get to the next level? And so, most of the time you figure it out, but it depends on the individual.
Okay. Do you have some maybe favorite book, or I don't know, maybe websites that where you really enjoy and take some resources?
Well, for teaching, for history, there's all kinds of good ones for history, and really depends on the class, because AP courses, there's a lot of good YouTube guys that are putting out nothing but videos specifically for AP world history, right? And they'll take you through every section, and they'll tell you exactly what you need to know. So I always try to use stuff that's tailored to those classes. But there's none in particular that I can think of, but it's kind of because I've been teaching long enough to where I already have a lot of stuff sort of, from past textbooks and from old websites, and I'm just sort of, as a teacher, you just sort of collect stuff over the years, lessons and things that you want to use and continue to use. So, but I'm always on the lookout for new materials. But you definitely, with everybody having their own computer now in the room is nice, because then I can direct them to whatever online source I want them to look at. And that's, textbooks. We do have, these are the books for AP World History. So we kind of have to use these because this is tailored to, and that's actually a small version.
Oh my God, this is a small version.
Yeah, this is considered a supplemental book actually. But we use those because it's enough, if you threw anything bigger at them, you go one section at a time, it's not too bad. But in U.S. history, you'd notice we don't use the textbook because we're using all different sources, and if I want you to read stuff, I have stuff already that I'm going to give you. But so that's what's kind of nice with the internet now. We're not tethered to one book. We can do whatever. We can use any sources we want.
Yeah, I'm taking AP Physics, and they give me this big book, and it's very big, and I'm like, bro, that's a lot. And then I put it in my locker, and it was my first day here, and since that time I've never touched that book.
That happens.
Yeah, we never use that book, and they're luckily all the topics that I already learned in my school, so I don't need that book. So that was huge, and it was really heavy.
Oh yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I stopped using our book, because it was a huge book and it was heavy, and I'm like, just don't bring it. It's crazy to have to go to your locker and lug this thing around, and we don't even need it. So yeah, that's if it were up to me, we wouldn't use these either. But since these are specifically for AP World, we kind of have to.
So you on AP World, you work with these books?
We do use those, yeah.
And you don't work with the Google?
I'll still, yes. I do, college, because College Board is what runs the AP program. So they have their own website, so they have an AP classroom. So a lot of times we'll use, because they have practice questions and all the stuff on their site. So we'll use that more with AP classes, because it's tailored directly for to prepare them for the AP exam, which they'll take in May.
Okay. Oh, by the way, when we learn topics about maybe Soviet Union versus United States, how do you feel when you teach that topics? For example, when we learn history and we're talking about our government or Russia's government, we're always bro, that's so stupid. Why did you do that? And the same is happening with United States. We're why they did that? For example, when United States bought, I guess it was Alaska from Russia, and we're why? And then so we were interesting. So Americans, how do they feel about what the United States government is doing? Are they supporting, or they're
You mean what the U.S. government's doing now are they supporting,
no,
or
what they
in the
did
past?
in the past.
So in the Cold War, I think, it's easy to just be like, yeah, America we're all about freedom and democracy, and Russia's a dictatorship, so it's all good for us and all that. But it's more complicated than that, obviously. And the U.S., and that's part of my job is, and I think you hopefully noticed that in my class, like, I'm not just going to tell you how great America is. I'm going to show you the bad stuff too, because it's part of our history. Like the civil rights movement shouldn't have even been a thing that needed to happen, but it did because people were ignorant and did stupid things and kept people separate. And that's, to me, that's part of, like, the Native Americans, like, we need to know what happened to these people, and like the U.S. government did that stuff, and America's not always right. That's the thing. In the Cold War, it's kind of the same way. Like, we were mostly trying to do the right thing, which is, we see the fact that communism mostly harms people, and that's not a good system to live under. Like, historically, you look at North Korea right now, and it's not a place we want to live. So we're trying to keep that from happening elsewhere during the Cold War. That's the whole containment thing. So that's a good mission. But then we get into places like Vietnam, where communists are fighting and we're fighting them, and it gets really messy, and our government starts doing things to their people that shouldn't have been done, and a lot of innocent people die. And you got to look at that and go, yeah, we might have been well-meaning, but we still shouldn't have been there. It shouldn't have happened. So it's just like with anything else. Yes, we did some good things, we did some bad things, and in the end, here's how it played out, and you make your own decisions about it. But to me, communism is not a thing that anyone would want to live under, and I would hope that Russian people feel that way today. Like, I feel like Putin is sort of trying to be like Stalin in some way, like he's trying to go back to that, and I hope that's not the case, because I feel like that's not good for Russia or anyone else, like with Ukraine especially, obviously, what's going on there. So
did you hear that Navalny, how
he was he was like murdered or executed or whatever.
He died recently.
I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that only happens in a dictatorship where the rule of law does not exist, and the dictator just does kill that guy, and then it happens. It's like, that's not supposed to happen in a free society. So, and not to say the U.S. government today is a mess. So I'm not going to sit here and say that they're great. Our president, we haven't had a good president in a long time, but it's just, you'd still rather live in a society that values freedom than not, and take all the mistakes along the way. You'd still rather fall on the side of freedom rather than not. And I think most Americans would say that's true. We don't want to live in a dictatorship. No one wants to be told how to live their life. Right? That's what it comes down to.
Who is the most favorite president in the United States?
History?
Yeah.
Well, Kennedy's up there, and I think he was a fascinating, and we're about to get ready to start talking about him in class. Ronald Reagan, because he's the first president I remember when I was growing up.
Oh, so, he stopped the Cold War.
Yeah, so he gets a lot of credit, and I feel like I have a lot of respect for what he did. Again, not perfect, but he did a lot of good. And maybe like Teddy Roosevelt. I mean, I feel like just kind of like a, very charismatic, did a lot of stuff, very animated, Panama Canal, and a lot of things he accomplished. So probably my top three. Abraham Lincoln is probably to me, Abraham Lincoln is number one on the all-time list, because Civil War, getting rid of slavery, he really sort of changed the trajectory of the country forever. So Lincoln to me is always at the top of the list, though.
I've actually never heard about the Teddy Roosevelt before I came here. And when I came here, we immediately decided to talk about him. But a lot of people like Barack Obama.
Yes, and he was historic in a lot of ways, and I feel like it's just, we go from him to Trump and then Biden, and it's just like, it's been such a downer since Obama left office. It's like, really? And now we've got Trump versus Biden again, so it's kind of disappointing that we can't find anyone younger or different, to run the country. So I guess we gotta wait 4 more years.
Yeah.
I'm not happy with either one of those choices.
Really?
Yeah.
But so many people were so happy when Trump I don't know how to say, like, stopped being the president, and then Biden started to work. So yeah, and I thought many people like Biden, but people here don't like either Trump or Biden. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Well, I think people thought Biden was going to be a certain way, and it hasn't turned out that way. Like, he's clearly too old for the job. You know, like he's aging very rapidly, and the job is really stressful. So even for a younger man, it's almost too much. For a guy his age, it's impossible. There's just no way for either of those guys, because Trump is almost just as old as Biden is. So I mean, I look at all these people, because there's so many guys in Congress that are 80 plus years old. It's like, just retire. What are we doing? And I feel like my generation, I'm in my 40s. This is the generation that should be running the country now, not 80-year-olds.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's frustrating for someone like me to see we could have better leadership, but somehow we don't. It's kind of frustrating. You know, it is what it is. So
the Indiana is Republican state.
Yes.
How do you feel about it?
I mean, honestly, so and this is where, you know, you have local, you have state, and you have federal. Like, so you have So at the state level, I usually vote Democrat because I'm a teacher, and because in Indiana, the Republicans in this state have done a lot to destroy public education that you may not be aware of. But Brian can probably tell you more about that. But it's just, they've passed a lot of laws. I've personally lost a lot of money in my career because of Republicans changing the rules in this state, and every teacher in this building is in the same boat. So at the state level, I usually vote Democrat. At the federal level, generally I vote Republican because I'm more like low taxes. I want less government. I just want less government in general. Like, leave us alone, let us live our lives.
Yeah.
And generally I favor those policies. Let's have a strong border so we know who's coming in and who's not. I'm not opposed to immigration, but I am opposed to not knowing who's coming in and from where, you know, and just things like that. Like, I feel like there's just, my problem with on the national level is, I call it the lunatic fringe. Okay, you have these crazies over here on the far right who are like ultra MAGA Trump people, and then you have the crazies on the far left who are, let's tear down the whole system and then there's nothing, you know, like the people in the middle like me are like, can we just get sane people to do normal things? And like the two lunatic fringes are like pulling us in these crazy extremes, and to me that's not healthy. That's not a good sign for the country when we have the two like extremes who seem to be running the two parties and not the moderates who normally would be in charge. Like, and that's where you get into some civil war time, and I don't think that it's going to happen here, but I just feel like it's not good. So.
Yeah. I actually didn't know that Indiana is Republican. I didn't even think about this, and because usually Republican people, they are like more for Trump and all of this stuff, and here I've never met a person who is for Trump. Everybody's against him, and that's why I was like, I didn't even think about it. And then I looked at the statistics, and Indiana is like Republican. I'm like, wow.
Very red. Yeah, locally, I think Evansville has a lot of Democrats locally, but around the state, it's mostly Republican. So that's what you tend to find. The larger cities, urban areas tend to be more Democrat, and all the rural areas are super conservative and red, so Republican. So, and Indiana's mostly a rural state, so that's why, you know.
So, and Texas is very Republican, right? It's more like
they usually vote red,
in the south side, mostly Republican. In the north side, mostly Democrat.
Yeah, they're a good mix, but they usually go Republican. But maybe not as much as Indiana, because I feel like they do have a lot of Democrats there too, because they got some bigger cities. But yeah, so it's funny. Every American election comes down to like 5 states, because you already know 45 states. You already know how they're going to vote. Like, California is going to vote Democrat no matter what. Texas is going to vote Republican no matter. Indiana's going to vote, but there's only like Pennsylvania, Michigan. There's like several states where you're not sure, and they could go either way. And that's the states that are going to decide who our president is. And it's
but
weird.
Indiana is like is also some of the states that you don't know what to expect, or Indiana, you know that it's more Democrat.
I think Indiana used to be, we call them toss-up states, where they could go either way. Indiana kind of used to be in that boat, but for most of my life, it's been Republican solid every time.
Yeah.
We did vote for Obama once, I think. I think Obama's first term, Indiana voted Democrat. That's the only time in like 50 years that they voted Democrat.
Okay.
So you can pretty much count on Trump winning Indiana, no matter what he does. He could, you know, it's frustrating because he gets away with everything, and doesn't matter to most Trump people. Are just like, yeah, we're gonna vote for him. I'm like, it shouldn't be that way. Like, the man shouldn't be running, and neither should Biden. Frankly, he should be stepping aside because he's too old. But anyway, I could talk forever about this stuff.
Yeah.
But we should probably wrap this up.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for sharing time. I think
welcome.
it was really good video because it was a really interesting conversation.
I hope
really
so.
enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. That's
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you for your time. Всем пока.